So welcome everybody. I'm really happy to be here today with everyone to be able to share a little bit about my experience with assessment strategies to promote learner agency and self-reflection. I'm grateful for the invitation to share a little bit of my expertise and the work that I have done in this area over the last years. To begin, we're going to be talking about what learner agency is. We're going to discuss self-reflection, which is an important piece not only for us as teachers, but also for the learners. We're going to discuss what assessment is so that we are in tune on one definition. Then the types of assessment, whether it's formative or summative, then how assessment is linked to agency and self-reflection. And we're going to end up with some suggested strategies or some suggested tools that you can use in order to assess, but also promote learner agency and self-reflection in your classrooms. But I want to start by with a power question. What are you getting out of the conversation today? And before we start and think about that, I want you to tell me what you think or what you know about learner agency. And for that, we're going to be filling out this Padlet. Let me make my screen small and let's move to our Padlet here. And in this Padlet, it's very easy. We're going to fill out the first two columns. What do you think about learner agency? So we start by clicking in the plus and then we add learner agency. I believe it is promoting healthy and effective decision making. So these are my thoughts about what it is. You can even change the color. And if you like, you can add a picture there. I'm not going to do that just because of time constraints. What do you know? So I know that there is research on the topic that states the importance of promoting these aspects for our learners in the classroom. And then we're going to change the color to green, and then we can publish that. So you're going to follow the same model. You're going to have like 1 or 2 minutes to do this. If you didn't copy the link, if my colleagues can help me with the link on the chat. If not, you can follow the QR code over there. So just to make sure that you are adding to that Padlet. And as we move along, we're going to go back to that Padlet. But tell us over there what you think and what you know about learner agency. Follow in that example that I gave you. As we move along, there are many definitions about what learner agency is. One of it is from Bruno, as he discusses agency as a way to empower, to provide a choice, to facilitate what to do with the choice. Sometimes we think, okay, let's give them choices, let's give the students options. But that doesn't mean that we just give them any choice for whatever they want to do. It's a choice where we are facilitating a process for learning, right? It's not just giving a choice just to say, oh, I give my students a choice. Is I give them a choice that is coherent and strategic within the work that I want them to learn about. I involve the learners in creating, in designing. That's very important. That's a way to empower our learners and build that agency. It's a means of showing them a path that they could follow and showing them different pathways, different options that they could follow based on their needs and interests, based on why they're learning English or why they are in your classroom, what are they doing. And we link this to assessment for voice and choice. And assessments, as I have always seen them, are a way to actually learn. It's not a way for us just to test and to determine whether our students have progressed or are proficient or know something about something. It's our way for them to also learn. So assessments also need to be a means for the students to learn. So it's very important that we think about that. So, how do we promote or how do we build learner agency in the classroom? Well, first we establish clear expectations. What are we expecting from the students, but also what do we expect in general from our classroom so that they are aware of what we want? Just like that outline that I shared with you at the beginning, those were my expectations for the session today. That's how we need to set the stage in order for our students to understand what they're doing. They need to understand why and what. Why are we doing this? What is the purpose that we want to achieve at the end of the process? We also need to build community. When we're building agency, we want to empower people in communities. And this is part of TESOL's experiences both for exemplary teaching. And it's actually principle 6 that talks about communities of practice and how do you connect and network with others to support each other in the process of learning, in the process of becoming empowered, in the process of encouraging others, in the process of building that agency. We also want to include formative conversation starters, right? Ways in which our students are either using the language or the content that we are teaching to have that process of learning. So it's not just the formal book, the formal text, or the formal handout. It's building those conversations that are formative, that are going to create community, and that are also going to build that learning, and that are going to make our learners feel empowered. And it's that sharing among colleagues and learners. So like today, I'm here today to share a little bit about it, my expertise in the chat and in our conversations that we're going to have throughout the time that we are together. You're going to be sharing some of the things that you know and some of the experiences. So the idea is to learn and share together all the time. And that's how we build agency, because we are learning from others' experiences, we are sharing our own experiences, and we are growing together as a team. Some examples that we can discuss about learner agency. It's like bringing in the lesson and letting the learner establish the goals for the learning. So let's say that you bring the content and your content is about culture. What are the goals? What do they want to learn about culture for something in particular? It can be from a country, it can be the culture of the language that they are learning, or it can be the culture of the country they are in, or a country that they have visited, for example. So it depends on what you want, on the topic that you have to discuss. Be the encourager and provide positive feedback. So we always need to make sure that we are encouraging to take risks, to do things, to move beyond what they think they can do so that they can develop those competencies, and make sure that we are providing positive feedback. Now, this doesn't mean that we are not going to tell them things that they need to improve, but it means that when we are telling them that, we are building it in a positive way for them. We want to promote learner self-talk. That's very important, that they are reflecting on their own and thinking about their own learning. And it's not crazy, because you start thinking, oh, I did this way, and then I went about it in this other way, and then I learned this. So it's part of that self-reflection, right? That self-talk. And it's part of that metacognitive process of understanding how you're learning, how you're doing things, and it helps you grow. So allow that space for learner self-talk. It can be speaking in their own brains, it can be speaking out loud, or it can even be writing it out. It depends on how you want to do it or how learners feel more comfortable doing. Also allow learners to contribute to others' work. For example, when we are doing gallery walks, or we're doing gallery shows, or we are doing fairs, we're allowing learners to learn from others, but also to contribute, to add, to tell them, oh, as an outsider, as the audience of your work, I can see that you could make a change here and it would be more appealing in terms of design, in terms of the content, in terms of the message, for example. So we need to let learners contribute to each other's work. And that's part of what I was saying before, sharing and learning and building that community. We want students teaching students. We want teachers helping teachers. Right now, we are teachers coming together, having a conversation and learning from each other. We also want our students to be doing that, because they respond most of the times better to their peers than sometimes to the teacher who is in that position of authority usually. So it's a good idea to have students teach students. Also provide ample space for choice. We mentioned that before. Promote curiosity. While we do have to have certain habits and certain trends or certain things in our classroom that go in a certain way. We do want to change things every now and then and often because we want to keep our students engaged and we want to promote curiosity. We want them to think about what's going to happen next. What are we going to be doing in the next class that we have? And again, discover how their brain works through self-talk, through learning, through social emotional learning, that metacognitive process that we want to make sure we are developing and that ensures that our students are understanding what they are doing, they are self-correcting, they are self-validating, so they don't need that external constant correction or validation from the teacher. Very important to promote that in the classroom. Let's go back to our Padlet. And then for this part, what you are going to do, and we're going to see what people have done in the Padlet, but what we are going to do in this part is, what do I infer about agency and self-reflection? And I'm going to say that it's needed. It's necessary for growth. We want to think about agency and self-reflection as a tool or as a means for our students to grow. And we want to make sure that we are including this as part of our learning. What have I understood about agency and self-learning is that it's highly relevant. And I want to say this with an exclamation mark, because it promotes empowerment and development of social emotional learning skills. And we're going to talk a little bit about social emotional learning in just a bit. But we want to make sure that we are including these aspects because it's highly relevant. So we want to include promoting agency and self-reflection in our classroom. We want to do that. Again, our colleagues in the room, virtual room, are going to share the link over there, or you can scan the QR code if that is much easier for you. So make sure that you are telling us over there what are your inferences on this topic from what we have discussed up to this point, and what you understand. What is your understanding of what we have been talking about, and how does that resonate with you, or how does that relate to what you have been doing? And again, you're going to have a couple of minutes to do that. I'm just going to move along because of time constraints and to make sure that we are following the process. Why are we self-reflecting? Social emotional learning talks about core competencies that our students need to develop in order to be able to function in a healthy manner in the context where they are, so that they are in an environment that is as much as possible not conflictive, and that creates that establishing those healthy relationship with others. And it includes being self-aware, like what are my strengths and what are my limitations, what are the things that I can do well, but where do I need to work a little more. It also allows us to self-regulate. We are emotional beings. Human beings are usually people that can be angry right now, sad the other moment, or happy the next. But when we develop our social emotional learning skills, we can self-regulate and manage ourselves in a way that it's good for the context where we are in, and that we are promoting healthy actions within our environment. Also recognizing what others can do, awareness of others and their abilities and the support that they might need and the expectations that they might have of a relationship. And also solving problems, improving our communication skills, and making ourselves accountable in order to make sure that we are deciding or making decisions that are coherent and that really improve our communications with others, but that especially contribute to our self-development. And this is very important, and this is something that it's not something that you just incorporate as a simple lesson. It is something that has to be cross-cutting. So social emotional learning development has to be cross-cutting and has to be part of everything that we do in the classroom, not only in the language classroom, but in education, in the school in general. And it can start little in our classrooms, but it should expand to the whole institution and then to the rest of the community. So we want to make sure that we are integrating this, and I'm going to share with you some links so that you can read more about it. TESOL International Association, if you're a member, also has some self-paced courses that are really good about how to develop social emotional learning. And there are books by Luis Javier Penton Herrera and Hilda Martinez related to social emotional learning. And there are many sources where you can learn more about how to incorporate this in your lessons and how to make it part of your habitual work that you do in the classroom. Very important. So it needs to become a habit for us. How do we do self-reflection? And here we need to be very careful, and that's why I wrote that in red. Be careful not to fall into the negative self-reflection, which we usually tend to do. We are very good at the negative. We can see the negative very quickly in people or in ourselves. And usually we are very hard with ourselves when we don't do things very well. And we don't give ourselves grace. And we don't give others grace either. So it's important not to fall on the negative aspect of self-reflection, criticism, judgment, or being too excessive or overthinking stuff. There needs to be a healthy process for self-reflection. Some ways in which you can promote self-reflection is by giving team love, shout outs, post-its on the wall that say, Juan is fabulous because he did this great today in the class. Or a shout out for Peter or to Amanula because he did a great job with his designs or his gallery walk or his journal or his writing. You can also do writing. I was telling you before that students can engage in writing by making sure that they are writing their reflections. It can be a post-it, it can be an entry in a piece of paper, it can be a journal or a diary. It depends on what the students wants to do. You need to give them choices there. Co-evaluation, and that this connects to what I was saying before, of learners contributing to the work of their peers, making sure that we're focusing on the positives. And note that I don't say weaknesses, I say in the areas to improve, because we keep it in the positive language, because we don't want to say it's a weakness. When we think of a weakness, we usually think of something, I'm always going to be bad at it. But when I think about an area to improve, it means that right now I am working on it to become proficient or to reach an area where I think that I'm comfortable with developing that skill. So we want to keep it in the positive. Self-reflects on tasks. Choose one area. They don't need to reflect on everything, but choose one area to reflect on. Think about their behavior. What did they do in the class that was a good thing? If you have somebody that has issues with controlling their anger, for example, or their emotions, how did they manage their emotions and negotiate it with others to have a healthy relationship and avoid conflict? But we also need to be the model. So we need to be doing this. And we do it usually by thinking, what went well in this lesson? What could be improved? Or your teaching practice in general, not only the particular lesson for the classroom, but what are you doing well? What are the things that you want to improve? What are the things that you want to change, right? And then you can share with others what you are thinking. So that's the how of how we can do self-reflection. Now let's look at this Miro board and let's think about, and for this, Miro is very similar to Jamboard, and you will see in these Miro boards that I have set them up in a way in which you are looking at four squares, different colors, and each of them says something different in which you're going to reflect. So in order to write in the Miro, what you do is, sorry about that, what you do is you are going to double click on the post-it, and you're going to say, for example, what will I change? Take more time to myself, for example, if I'm reflecting of the work that I'm doing. Here, we are supposed to be self-reflecting. Sorry that something happened over there. Self-reflection. So I'm going to say, uh, I am committing to too many tasks. That is my self reflection, and I need to do something about it. So, how can I do things differently? Commit to one task at a time, prioritizing, right? So, I'm saying that. And how will I share this with others? I will have conversations. I will post on my blog or social media, for example. That's the way that I will share. Okay, so this is for you to self reflect on things that you want to change in your teaching practice. What do you want to self reflect about what you're currently doing? And then what are you going to do differently, or how can you do things differently? Because you're saying here, take more time to myself. How are you going to do that? I'm going to commit to one task at a time and prioritize. And then how will I share what I'm doing? I'm going to have conversations or post in my social media. So that's those are ways in which we self-reflect, for example, and that's a tool. And again, you can use the link that is going to be shared in the chat, but you can also use the QR code here to help you self-reflect and think about what you're doing, your own changes, others' changes, your own reflections, and how do you plan to share what you are learning? Because it's very important when we learn something that we don't keep it to ourselves, right? We want to share, we want to make sure that we are promoting things that we learned with others because maybe others don't have access. So we want to be the ones that give them access to that. So we want to make sure that we are sharing. So I'm going to leave that Myra there. You're going to have a couple of minutes to do that and share a little bit of your ideas. Very good. This is an example of how we can assess, measure, or test. And this is a rubric. And rubrics usually have those success parameters. We need to share them in advance with our learners. Here is an example of a rubric to promote oral skills with beginners. And the strategy that, for example, we are using for this rubric are three types of strategies. Presentations that are usually in the classroom, an oral portfolio where you develop different oral tasks throughout the period, the year, or the semester that you're working with your students, and something related to community engagement. So that means take things that we are doing in the classroom, take them out and bring them into the community, because we want our students to connect what they are learning with their daily lives, right? We want to make sure that's happening. And the activity for the presentations, for example, they can play topics that are cultural, personal, or professional. And the tools that we're using or the products of that learning is going to be a presentation, either a PowerPoint or a Prezi. And then for the oral portfolio, we're developing those topics, we're documenting them, we are keeping them in one platform. It can either be YouTube or Voxopop, VoiceThread, Audacity, iMovie, Instagram. There are many places where that can be saved, Facebook groups. It can be also done through Bookaroo. It can be now done through artificial intelligence in DID. So there are many places in which you can have recordings and you can have a place to store those things, and that teachers can use them for the students' reflection or to review their work and assess their work and measure their progress. Community engagement, usually through task-based or project-based learning. We have an expected result that could be an environmental campaign, for example. So for this, they have to design a worklet, they need an action plan, and then the presentation of their result, how that went into the community and something that they needed to do for the community, for example. Assessment should be centered in learning. It should be something that is facilitated by the teacher. Assessment is really good when it's formative. It's not that when it's summative, it's not good, but formative makes sure that you are not grading one time and that's it. Formative means that you are building progress one step at a time, and so that's good. The contents is usually specific that we're going to assess. There are no surprises. Our students know what to expect. It's ongoing. It's something that we're doing in the classroom weekly, maybe every 2 weeks. It depends on our context. And it's beneficial for learners and teachers. And I was telling you, when we think about learners and assessment, is what are my students going to learn from this assessment? right? What are they going to learn? As a teacher, how is it going to allow me to understand their progress? But I need to make sure that it has that two-way win-win. What are my students learning from the assessment? What am I learning in terms of their progress, right? So it's a tool for learning, not a tool for punishing, not a tool for making our students feel bad, not a tool for making our students feel stressed. Very good. Now, what do we need to consider for a lesson? Well, it's a good thing that you need to make sure that you have an online space, for example, for that lesson. It could be a blog, a wiki, or Google Drive. Google Drive is great because it has that collaborative piece that allows you to work in real time with not a lot of problems. Wikis sometimes are problematic, they can have glitches, and blogs allow you to have threaded comments. But I think Google Drive, it's the best way with the Google Docs, the Google Sheets, the Google Slides. Those are great. Creating videos, either you Zoom, Google Meet, Flipgrid, VoiceThread, or iMovie. Audios as well. So if people are shy of the camera, you can use audios only. Flipgrid is good. It's now called Flip, or you can do audios through WhatsApp, for example. You can also create visuals. There are many tools out there like Canva, Paint, AutoDraw, Google Slides, Google Draw. You can also create the traditional presentations. You need to think about delivery. Do you want this to be synchronous or asynchronous? That means, are they doing it in the classroom or are they sharing a video, right? And people are going to see it on their own time. How do you want to do that? And very important, again, that principle 6 from the 6 principles, create community, positive feedback, collaborate, build a team that is working together to achieve that same goal. And notice that I say teamwork and not group work, because group work is the people together and sometimes only one person working. But when we say a team, all of the team is pulling their weight to make sure that they achieve the goal. So that's very important to think about and to consider when building a community. There are other types of assessing, like a quick pulse. You can use apps like Mentimeter, Kahoot, Flipgrid, Quizlet, Quizzes, Google Forms, or the assessments that need more detail and time can be portfolios, writing portfolios, oral portfolios, speaking portfolios, and you can do them in YouTube or Google Docs or through blogs on in Facebook. So those are some ways or some things that you need to consider when developing your lesson. You also need to consider, sometimes we are thinking, well, what is quicker that I can set up right away? Questions, or when we're in a virtual setting, the chat, or we leave them a test to take home, or we give them homework. But we need to think that we want to have assessment that it's a journey that is really ensuring that it's effective and that it has a clear purpose. And that while we could do traditional testing when we are virtually, for example, or in person, we do want to ensure that we are giving that space and that area to improve and to grow. And that really what we're doing in terms of assessment is guiding the teaching process. We want to make sure of that. So in the chat, tell me or tell us, what have you done in terms of assessment in your classroom? What have you done based on what we have discussed so far? What are the things that you have done that build agency and promote self-reflection? And our colleagues are going to give you 1 or 2 minutes to do that and to share in the chat some ideas. Okay, this is what I was telling you about methods to take a quick pulse. Getting started with Flipgrid, Mentimeter, or Kahoot, you can use those. There are many platforms: Prezi, VoiceThread, Boxapop, YouTube, all of social media, designing. There are videos that allow you to make your own design. Game-based learning, and here we want to make a differentiation into game-based learning and gamification. Game-based learning is a great way to assess because you can help your students create oral portfolios through things that they like, video games or board games that you bring to the classroom, but it's using the actual game. That's game-based learning. When you think about gamification, it's using the foundations of games to introduce different activities in the classroom. And that's, for example, If we are doing an activity related to learning about colors, for example, we give them a badge for learning. Or when people have learned 5 new vocabulary words that they are using in their essays, for example, and this is a very basic activity. But if you are working on vocabulary and developing skills related to new vocabulary, you don't do it in isolation, but you are using a text and you are using, for example, mentor texts that contain the vocabulary that you want. How are you bringing that? And if they achieve certain goals or certain milestones in the process, they're going to get a badge, or they're going to get a prize, or they're going to get something that is demonstrating that achievement. So it has to be something that is challenging. It has to be a process in which they are learning and they're going to achieve a goal or develop a skill. They're going to be engaged in the process and they're going to get a reward at the end. Okay, so that's what gamification is. So don't confuse gamification with game-based learning, because those are two different things, and that's a complete different session that we can talk about later. Some examples of game-based learning. I have used, for example, Trace Effects. Trace Effects is a game in 2 dimensions created by the U.S. Department of State. I like it because it discusses a little bit about the United States, about the culture, but it also discusses very interesting topics. And let's watch the video so that you can have a listen to this. So as you can see, the video, as you can see in the video, it's about different places in the United States and about different topics, women empowerment and the environment. So it's a great tool. The way that I used it is that we would play the game. It also had some cartoons that they could read from each chapter that they would finish, and then I would help them with this. I would use guiding questions to help them write their journal entries, and we were doing different types of genres of writing: narrative, descriptive. And I would give them the guiding questions, and I was teaching my beginners cohesion, organization of ideas, how to respond to questions in paragraph form and not question by question, and that was helping them with their writing. So it was a very interesting game. This is an example of how I set up the journal entries, and you're going to have the PowerPoint presentation, so no worries about that, so that you can use it if you want to, and you can also write to me if you want more ideas about this. Using YouTube for speaking portfolios, Facebook groups. Facebook groups, I wrote an article about Facebook groups and about how to use it to enhance language skills. The beauty of Facebook groups is that you can share everything. You can share audio, you can share writing, you can share articles, you can have discussions on certain topics by a post that you create. And you can have multi-level classrooms that can benefit from each other. So the beginner students can benefit from those that are more advanced, and it creates a safe space where learners can write. And now with the editing tools from Facebook, it's even better, because they can write something. If they make a mistake, they can go back and correct it. But it gives them that public, but at the same time private space and safe space where they can grow and learn together, and promotes that collaboration and that community that I was talking about at the beginning. Nearpod is great. What I like about Nearpod is that it actually has a library for all levels, from all the way from kinder to higher education, and it has content that is ready to use. But it also has content that you can adapt and that you can use in your own lessons. So I like that about Nearpod. And I can show you here a little bit about how it works.
Let's look at a Nearpod lesson in action. On the left, you'll see a teacher view, and on the right, a student view. To start a lesson, hover over it, then click Live Lesson or Student Paste. Your students will input the lesson's code on the Nearpod app or website to join it. During a live lesson, when you advance through on your teacher dashboard, the student's lesson progresses as well. When you arrive at an assessment activity, you can view students' answers as they're submitted. You can then share submissions with the class for instant feedback and reflection. Once your lesson is over, you can access student responses via the Reports tab for your professional reflection, for documentation, or a grade in your gradebook. That's it for now. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out at support@nearpod.com.
And that's something that I like about Nearpod. They have this support system where they respond to your questions and they respond to your needs, and you can ask as many questions as you need to set up your lessons. And they also have a lot of tutorials for teachers who want to use Nearpod. So I recommend that you go and explore that. It's really a good resource, and there are many good tools there. Like I said, there are things that are ready to use, and there are things that are that you can actually set up or modify on your own. This is an example of formative assessments.
With Nearpod's variety of formative assessments, you can gauge a student's understanding of your lesson in real time and even automate lesson grading. Let's take a look at some examples. Draw-its are like interactive whiteboards. Students can draw, highlight, type, and add pictures. You can upload an existing file or start from scratch. Draw-its can be used to solve equations, annotate passages, label diagrams, and much more. With open-ended questions, students can explain their thinking or get creative. Teachers are able to share responses with the class anonymously to highlight strong answers or tackle misconceptions without putting anyone on the spot. All responses are logged in post-session reports. Use a poll to highlight student opinions, collect information, check for overall class understanding, or as a springboard for a class discussion. Share anonymous responses with the class in the form of a pie chart. With Collaborate boards, you can create collaborative learning opportunities where students share their ideas in real time. Students can post text and images and even like each other's posts. You can choose to approve posts before they appear on the board. Fill in the blanks is a drag and drop activity for a quick check on vocabulary or a fast review of a concept. It's an easy and fun way for students to gauge their own understanding and a favorite of English language learners. Make your classroom more accessible for visual learners with matching pairs. Let students test their knowledge by matching pictures and/or text. Matching pairs is great for vocabulary, math, science, almost any subject. Gamify the whole experience with the timer option. Eliminate the headache of manually grading exit tickets and tests. With quizzes, you can assess students' understanding through multiple choice or true-false questions, receive instant results, and identify common misconceptions. Get 100% student participation, instant feedback, auto-graded results, and an engaged classroom. It's all possible with Nearpod. So, let's transform teaching together.
So I really like that about Nearpod, and I want to show you actually their website, because I wanted to show you how it actually had that library of resources. I want you to see that. And so that you see that it has that amount of resources that you can use in your classroom that are ready to use, and that you can either modify or just set up the way that you want to set them up, because it can be adapted and they're flexible enough. So as you see here, it has the school library, and here I have things that I have done that I have modified on my own. But here you see the school library, and you see that it has, sorry, the Nearpod library is the one. School library is for a specific school. So this here, you can see that it has all this content, and it has things in Spanish and English. It has celebrations. It has a lot of information. It has reports. You can look at it by grades. And here you see from kindergarten all the way to higher education. You can search for it by subjects. You can say search by content types, videos, activities, or lessons, or you can share by publishers. All of this is for free. And then they have the premium content that for that you need to pay. But they have a lot of information and a lot of things that you can use for free. And here you can select even by standards. Like if you're in the United States, you can use it by standards. If you want to use the standards from the United States, you can also take a look at those, and that can be helpful for your teaching practice, because there can be many things there that you can select and that can be useful for you. And then here are resources for teachers, live webinars, teacher getting started, communities on how to use the library, how to connect with other teachers who are using it. So like I said, it has a lot of good resources that are really valuable, and that I really definitely recommend that you use in your teaching practice. So make sure that you explore it and that you get to work a little bit. Make sure that you explore about this topic and about assessment. And here there are some links that can help you do that. So make sure that you explore when you get the PowerPoint presentation. And that's it for me. I hope you had an engaging and good time today. It was fun for me to share a little bit about how to build agency and empower learners through assessment, making it fun, making it interesting, promoting self-reflection, encouraging others to grow. If you have any questions, write to me. I will be sure to answer, not maybe immediately, but as soon as I can. And make sure you let me know what things from the things that you heard today you used, and whether they were good, whether they were relevant, and whether something caught on and you were able to actually use it in your classroom. So thank you for having me today. It has been a definite pleasure, and I hope to see you around, and someday, who knows, maybe I'll see you in person. Thank you for having me today.